going to paint my clay gnome. I have my paper towel, my water, I have a few different sizes of brushes, I have some paint, I have my gnome. So I also have a plan in mind of where my colors are going to go. So I'm going to start by getting my temper cakes wet because they're not already wet. I'm going to start on my hat. My hat is going to be red, so I'm just going to take my brush and mix some water into this temper cake. Okay, and then I'm going to start very carefully around my shape. So I could use this bigger brush and I can slide the tip of my bigger brush right underneath this clay piece and go carefully around that, okay? If I'm using a smaller brush, then I could easily also draw around shapes, okay? And then once I get my outlining done around the shapes, it would be smart to switch to a bigger brush to fill in the large areas. But you can see I'm going slow. I need to refill my paintbrush. I pull my paintbrush towards me so I can see what I'm doing and it doesn't make the bristles messy. They stay nice and together. And then once I get some areas outlined or all of my shapes outlined, I would then be able to come back in and use a bigger brush to fill in a bigger area so that I can go a little bit faster then. Okay. I want my paint color to stay consistent, so that my outlining right now looks a little bit darker than this fill-in color. So with this type of paint, that would mean I just could add a little bit more to it until they match. Okay. Along the edge where two colors are going to touch down here, I would pull the brush along that edge like this, or use my small brush and outline. A little white spot there, I want to get rid of that, so make sure I come back with some wet paint on my brush and kind of wiggle it into that spot. My paint starts to get dry, I just need to add more water to it. Okay. So you're going to paint your gnome, all your different areas in this style. Okay. Let's say I wanted gray. On my paint palette, I don't have gray, so I could get one of these white temper cakes. So this is a white temper cake, and then we're going to make gray out of it. This one I would make gray by using white. And I could also use some black. Okay, and then I can take some black paint from my black temper cake and just mix it in here, and then I could get gray. Okay, I will want to get this damp across the whole temper cake so that I have an even color of gray in case I need to keep refilling my brush. Okay, so there I have a nice gray color, and I have some paint down in the middle whole part of this that I can use. And then I'm going to paint kind of his body shape here gray. So I would go ahead and pull my brush along the edges. I'm going to wrap it down around the bottom. And so you can see this would then be how I could make gray. I would paint by gray area. All right. I'm going to leave everything that I want to be white. I'm not going to paint it. I do want this area in here to be gray. So I'm going to carefully kind of dab my paintbrush in that area, trying not to get his white beard. Okay. And then, for instance, like on my candy cane where I want tiny little stripes, I would switch to a very tiny brush, and I'd have to very carefully think about where those red stripes are going to go. So working and turning my gnome carefully so that I can see where I want to paint it. I probably don't want to leave it on the table, but kind of hold it in my hand carefully so that I can carefully paint my stripes. So this does take a lot of time and patience. Just continue to paint my gnome and use different colors, cleaning out my brush, using the water and the paper towel to make sure it's clean. I think I'm going to make his nose brown. Okay. I'd quietly just work and paint. Finished painting my clay gnome. I tried really hard to keep my white areas white so that I didn't have to try to paint them white. And the next step, once I'm done painting, is I'm going to put a clear varnish to seal the paint, and then it will be ready to put a string on since it's got a hole in it, and then it'll be ready to package up and take home.